All right, looks like I'm going to begin again the first heat of the Varsity 8. So boats are getting alignment. They've all come back from their practice run on the course. And looks like you get some hands out there, but all 7 boats are back on the stake boats. So again, we'll reset this with lane 1 on the far side, Cornell, lane 2, Penn, lane 3, UCLA, lane 4, Wisconsin, lane 5, Syracuse, lane 6, Navy, and lane 7, Tulsa. So again, just to kind of reset this, it would be top 2 from each heat will go on to the final at 9 a.m. for the Varsity 8. Top 2 from each heat, then the next fastest time. These boats are, the teams are theoretically seeded. Again, so early in the season, a lot of surprises likely to happen. So it's one of the exciting parts of racing in mid-April. So you expect the top seeds from the middle to be competitive in there, but also again so early anyone really can have a shot here. So waiting for a start, again 7 boats across. For those watching from home, you can see a little bit of the angles of the boats. A little bit hard to tell who's where, but we assure you they are level. If you as we get level with the camera, you'll see all boats having a fair shot for 2,000. Again, a bit swirling winds up there, but certainly doesn't seem too choppy at the top of the course. Okay, it looks like we're going to have another delay here for a couple more minutes with all the rain and current again. A couple more minutes delay, so you can see boats here coming off the line. You can see in the middle there, looks like Wisconsin doing just some stay to stay warm. But we'll delay again here for a couple of minutes just to make sure get everything off the course and clean. So we'll come back to you when we're going to start the race. Okay, welcome again. I think it's the third try, maybe fourth, to the Clemson Invitational. Looks like we have a start here, actually, in the first heat of the Varsity 8. So a bit of chaos going through because of the weather, with a ton of debris and high water. But we do have a start here. So on the far side, lane 1, Cornell, lane 2, Penn, lane 3, UCLA, lane 4, Wisconsin, lane 5, Syracuse, lane 6, Navy, and Tulsa, and you're right in the picture there on lane 7. So the camera here, the first half, we'll get by the side by side. You can see, looks like lane 5, Syracuse, maybe a couple seats out in the lead there. But those middle three boats, UCLA, Wisconsin, Syracuse, look to be out off the line. Looks like over there, maybe Cornell just a little bit back, Tulsa just a little bit back. But through the first 250 or so, looks to be those middle three crews just off the line. Syracuse maybe a seat or two up, UCLA right there with them, Wisconsin maybe a seat or two back on the leading three crews. And again, first two automatically qualify, and then from there the times will matter. And so a little bit swirly winds, certainly a race where you don't want to take your chances there. Again, the top two important for what happens here. Again, so it looks like there you had that UCLA, Wisconsin, Syracuse, the top three seeds to be the early leaders, the first, let's say 500 or so. So again, see on the far UCLA and the Cox in the blue jacket there, looks to be just a couple seats up on the field. Looks to be a tight battle. Wisconsin and Syracuse really close to that battle for second. But maybe Syracuse has a seat or two on Wisconsin still. Let's give them a slight edge for that second. Again, UCLA in the lead. Looks back to fourth. A battle between Navy and Penn on lane 6 and lane 2. Again, lane 6 on the near side. You can see with the bow markers what lanes they are. Again, Tulsa lane 7 on the near side. But UCLA continue to push out there. UCLA maybe, let's give them probably a 5-seat lead or so on the field. Very good battle there. Looks like Wisconsin now has moved up on Syracuse. Wisconsin looks to be in second, maybe 2 seats up on Syracuse. So again, on the far side, you see lane 3 over there, UCLA, and then a bit of an angle. So those watching from home, the angles look a little bit tough to figure out. But again, UCLA on the far side up just a couple seats. Syracuse maybe coming back a seat or two on Wisconsin, but very close for that second and third spot. UCLA continue to try to push out, but the two second and third holding with them pretty well. Again, the battle for fourth there looks to be between Navy and Penn. A little tough to see Cornell because of the angle. Cornell and Tulsa likely battling out for the 6th spot. So on the far side, it looks like Wisconsin starting to come back on UCLA. Syracuse right there. So it looks like the battle 1, 2, 3 getting closer. Again, looks like UCLA and Wisconsin now 1, 2. Syracuse in third, just a little bit further back. Trying to find that 1,000-meter mark, but coming up on that here pretty soon. So Wisconsin looking to have a stronger second 500 than the rest of the field there, and continue to push back into that with Wisconsin, UCLA in the lead there. Syracuse, again, a couple seats back to third. You see there Navy and Penn continue to battle. Pretty tight battle there for that 4th and 5th, with Penn just up slightly. And then you just saw the bow ball of Cornell sneak into the picture there for that 6th spot with Tulsa right there. So again, now you're seeing Wisconsin continue to creep out here on UCLA. So Wisconsin now looks to be either very close or maybe the leader. Again, our vantage point a little tough to see. The bow ball 5, Syracuse there trying to battle. Looks to be in the 3rd spot still. Maybe moving back on UCLA just a bit, but Wisconsin now looks to be your fairly clear leader. Let's give them about maybe a 5, 6 seat, well, maybe a 3 or 4 seat lead right now. Again, Syracuse trying to stay with Wisconsin there, come back on UCLA. UCLA had the early lead, and Wisconsin's just been consistently throughout this piece. Again, choppy conditions you can see with the wind and the current there. A little bit bouncy is going on, but the rowers handling that well, again, through the first heat here. So it looks like Wisconsin, as we'll switch here to the second camera shot in a few seconds, but Wisconsin looks to be the leader at this point to get the automatic bid to the finals, which were originally scheduled for 9, but will get pushed back a little bit. UCLA looks to still be in second, Syracuse trying to bear down on them. Navy and Penn looks to have that battle for 4th, 5th. You can see here this shift to the camera looks to be there again. Wisconsin in the middle, looks like the dark crew there. UCLA on our right looks to be in the 2nd spot. Syracuse 3rd. And again, a little bit tough with the angle, but as it continues to come down, we'll get a better shot of it. Navy in 4th, it appears to be. Penn in 5th, and then a tight battle 6th and 7th. So it looks to be about It's about 600 to go or so in the race course, with, again, those three really trying to get the qualification for the midday final. Syracuse staying right in there. Good battle, Syracuse UCLA for that second spot. Wisconsin looks to be about, let's say, 4 or 5 seats up on UCLA. UCLA a couple seats up on Syracuse for that 1, 2, 3. So again, let's say 4 seats to Wisconsin. Wisconsin 4 seats up on UCLA. UCLA maybe 4 seats up on Syracuse. But good race here for that second, third spot. Syracuse maybe coming back here, again, depending on the angle. But Syracuse continuing to move here. A good push through this portion. So Wisconsin has about a half-length lead on Syracuse now. Continue to move through UCLA there. So 1, 2 really matter. 3 are going to have to go off time, but Syracuse continue to move through here. UCLA, they maybe gained a couple seats here in the last 100 meters. Navy on the near side there in fourth. Back to Penn in fifth on the top of the screen. Looks like Tulsa's in sixth, and then Cornell in seventh on the far side. So Syracuse looking to come back on Wisconsin here a little bit, closing the gap. Those two look to be the automatic qualifiers if everything holds. Wisconsin in first, Syracuse in second, but Syracuse has gained, let's say, another seat or two in the last couple hundred meters, and about 8, 9 seats up on UCLA up in lane 3. Navy has been a little bit quiet here, almost. I haven't spoken about it, but they're moving back on UCLA as well. They're about 8 seats back off UCLA. So again, looks to be about 150, 200 meters to go. Wisconsin looks to be pretty clear leader here. Syracuse in second, trying to close that gap, but those two look to be the automatic qualifiers coming through. Last 100 meters, Wisconsin again looks like they, unless anything unforeseen happens, through the finish line here. Syracuse in second, UCLA in third, Navy about 8 seats back in fourth. We should see if everything holds from our earlier picture. Tulsa's continuing to push. Tulsa comes in fifth. Penn in sixth, and then Cornell seventh. So Tulsa consistent there. So in that race, UCLA had the early lead, and then Wisconsin, Syracuse continued to power through and to get the automatic qualifiers. Cornell coming through here. So times will matter. So look to see how UCLA stacks up with the third places in the next 2 heats. So we show the second heat of the Varsity 8 coming up next. Lane 1 will be San Diego. Lane 2, Louisville. Lane 3, Minnesota. Lane 4, Virginia. Lane 5, Oregon State. Lane 6, Oklahoma. Lane 7, Dartmouth. So we've moved to 7-minute centers, trying to get everything in with travel plans on the holiday weekend. Looking to have, with 21 teams here from across the country, this is going to get squeezed on the schedule and trying to get as many teams and as many boats to race as possible. So we do have a start in the second heat of the Varsity 8. Again, on the far side, San Diego, far side of the screen. Louisville, lane 2. Minnesota will be lane 3. Virginia, lane 4. Oregon State, lane 5. Oklahoma, lane 6. And Dartmouth, lane 7. So we should get a shot here. A little bit tough with the conditions to get the consistent camera shots, but we will, as we get close in range, we should have a good shot. Again, so the middle of the middle lanes are the top seeded. Again, it's so early in the season, a little bit tough to tell, but it did hold last time to have that. So looks like here you're seeing Minnesota there. Looks like over there in lane 3. Early leader there, a couple seats up maybe on Virginia over in lane 4. Looks like Dartmouth in lane 7 right in there. Again, hard to see lane 1 and lane 2. They also may be in the mix, but right now it looks like Minnesota maybe a seat or 2 up on Virginia. Virginia maybe a seat or 2 up on Oregon State. Seat or 2 up on Oklahoma. Dartmouth right there. And again, a little bit tough to see where Louisville and San Diego are, but they early on looks like everyone's really close for that the race. There we go. Okay, so back on here again. A little bit of technical difficulties, but get the picture there. Looks like Minnesota, a couple seats up on Virginia there. So Minnesota lane 3, Virginia lane 4. Let's give maybe a 3-seat margin to Minnesota. Lane 5 looks to be Oregon State. And again, looks like on the inside, or the far side, Louisville also in that mix. Let's give Louisville, let's put them in third right now. A couple seats up over Oregon State. So through the 1,000, Minnesota, let's give them maybe a 5-seat lead over Virginia. Minnesota lane 3, Virginia lane 4. And then a tight battle for third with Louisville and Oregon State. Just picture-wise, a little bit hard to see where we're at the same feed you are, so I can't tell you where the outside lanes are, but I think you could safely assume the qualifiers are likely to come out of these 4 right now. So Minnesota, let's give them maybe a 6-seat lead over Virginia, and then you see Louisville on the far side, also in that mix. Let's give them a couple seats up on Oregon State, but very tight for that 3rd spot. Again, with those times mattering. So Minnesota right now looks to be, let's say, 6-7 seats up through there. Virginia in 2nd, a couple seats up on Louisville and Oregon State, and then you see looks to be on the top San Diego and Oklahoma for that 5th, 6th spot. Dartmouth in that 7th spot on the left side of your screen. But Minnesota looks to be your leader right now, with maybe 7:50 to go or so. Let's give them about a 7 or 8 seat lead on Virginia. Virginia looks to be about maybe 3 or 4 seats up on, I think, Oregon State now, maybe in 3rd there. Oregon State up on Louisville, and then in 5th looks to be Oklahoma, still in contact to everything there. So maybe tightening up in that lead group of 3. So let's give Minnesota maybe say a 6-seat lead on Virginia. Virginia maybe a 5-seat lead up on Oregon State. Oregon State maybe 5 seats up on Louisville. Louisville maybe a length up on Oklahoma, and up on then let's say Oklahoma maybe 6 seats up on San Diego. San Diego length up on Dartmouth to 7th. So the leaders looks to be tightening up there a little bit. Minnesota maybe, let's say, 5 seats up on Virginia, 4 seats up on Virginia. Virginia maybe 4 up on Oregon State. So the 1, 2, 3 there. Virginia looks to be moving back just a bit here on Minnesota as we get to the last, let's say, 500 or so. So tightening up. Virginia may have making another move there on Minnesota. Looks from this angle that they may now have just inched out for the lead. And you also see Oregon State coming back on Minnesota. So these 3 are going to be the look to be the ones battling for the 2 qualifying spots. Virginia now is edged out. Let's give them maybe a 2-seat lead, and now almost dead even with Minnesota and Oregon State. Really good battle there for all 3. I mean, any of the 3 could come out of this heat. I thought Virginia and Oregon State had a bit of momentum, but Minnesota has now come back a little bit here. So really tight race there for all 3. Again, Oregon State continuing to get some momentum there. Oregon State now had been 3rd. Looks like they're moving into a battle with Virginia, but really 2-3 seats between 1st, 2nd, 3rd. In 4th, 5th, you still get Oklahoma and Louisville battling it out for 4th, 5th. Dartmouth maybe in 6th. San Diego in 6th. But looks to be that first 3. Oregon State now is inched out in the lead, it looks like. So Oregon State 1st, Virginia 2nd, Minnesota 3rd. But again, any one of them can be right in that battle for the 2 qualifying spots. So again, as we switch this vantage point to the finish line camera, all 3, the angle's going to look a little bit weird. So as we get alignment, you'll see who's really winning. Right now, I give a slight edge by eye to Oregon State, then Virginia, then Minnesota, but very tight all 3. And again, as we turn the angle, you get a better vantage point. It's a bit deceiving right here, but again, Oregon State in the lead, and then very tight 2nd, 3rd. Let's give Virginia a seat or 2 over Minnesota. That last 100 or so, again, you see Oregon State here, a couple seats up on Virginia. Virginia just 2 seats up on Minnesota. Those 2 will qualify through, and then the 3rd will be based on time there. So again, Oregon State 1st, Virginia 2nd, Minnesota 3rd, Oklahoma in 4th, Dartmouth in 5th, Louisville in 6th, and then San Diego in 7th. So again, those will the 2 qualifiers there automatically. Time will go be between Minnesota and UCLA from that first heat. Here's San Diego coming through to finish off this race in 7th. So again, once you get through the first couple qualifiers, then who's in the petites. And again, all this cross-regional racing that goes on will help determine some of the NCAA bids for later on. But so, turning around to Heat 3, again trying to get the last 2 automatic qualifiers for the finals this morning. So set up for this race, it'll be Boston University lane 1, Tennessee lane 2, Washington State lane 3, Duke lane 4, Alabama lane 5, Central Florida lane 6, Clemson lane 7. As we'll turn to this as soon as we get a good shot for this race. So again, the 3rd heat, and again, time's a little bit squeezed. Just racers just dealing with it as best they can with the current and situation as it is. So another 7-boat race coming up here, and you can see the boats coming in from the first heat just coming to the dock. So here, the 3rd heat, you can see lane 3 there, Washington State early leader. Lane 4, Duke right there. Lane 5, Alabama. Lane 6, Central Florida. Looks to be your leaders out of the middle. Lanes 3, 4, 5, 6, just from this camera angle. So Washington State, a slight lead here. Let's give them a 4-seat lead or so. Looks to be very tight there between Duke and Alabama. Central Florida right there. And you can see on the near side Clemson. On the far side, Boston University and Tennessee. But early leaders looks to be Washington State. Let's give them maybe a 5-seat margin. And very tight between Duke and Alabama. Duke in lane 4, Alabama lane 5, and Central Florida lane 6 there. Look to be the early leaders as we're going through the first 500 or so. Again, these were seeded as early season results indicate, but right now, with where we are in the year, a lot of surprises can happen. So lane 3, Washington State there, continuing to move out. Lane 4, Duke right there in second. Let's give them maybe a 2 or 3 seat lead over Alabama. Again, as we've seen in the earlier races, the early leaders aren't necessarily who's there later on. So here, Washington State first by, let's say, 5 seats. Duke's second, third, Alabama, Central Florida. But also, you see on the far side, Tennessee and Boston University also in that mix for that 4th spot. Again, Washington State, they had about a 5-seat lead, but looks like that margin stayed the same here in the last 100 meters, maybe 200 meters. Duke staying right there with them, Alabama staying right there with them, and then again on the far side we saw Boston University, Tennessee in that mix early as well. Tough to see because of the lane markers and the angles, but those 3 boats still competing early on for those 4th, 5th, 6th spots. But again, Washington State, early leader, been there consistently. Duke coming back on them just a bit. Let's give a 3-seat lead to Washington State. Duke maybe 3 seats up on Alabama, so that's 1, 2, 3 through this part of the race. So Duke had gained a seat or 2 back on Washington State. Maybe continue to move just a little bit there. You see a 1,000-meter mark or so. But Washington State has been in the lead from the beginning of this race. Duke was battling with Alabama for a while, but separated out just a bit there to Alabama. And then back you've got, looks to be Tennessee, I think it is in 4th, maybe Boston University in 5th. And then tight there with Clemson as well for that 6th spot. But Washington State here starting to move back out. Let's give them a 5 or 6 seat lead. Washington State had the gap had closed maybe to 3 seats there in the last 250, but Washington State started to pull back out again. Duke's still in that 2nd spot, clearly in 2nd, but not by a large margin. You still see Alabama right there in that battle. Then those 3 boats, lanes 1, 2, and 6, in a tight battle for that 4th spot. So again, Boston University, Tennessee on the far side, UCF on the near side. Those 3 are battling out for 4, 5, 6. But Washington State still up. That margins range from maybe, let's say, 3 seats to 5 seats. Duke's had kind of a 2-seat to 4-seat margin over Alabama. But looks like Alabama's starting to creep back in on both Duke and Washington State. So Alabama maybe coming back here through the middle of the body of the race here. I'd put maybe a seat back to Duke, if that much. And you're also seeing Central Florida about 8 seats back of the group. But right there, again, we know on the far side, Tennessee and Boston University have also been in that mix. So we'll not count them out. Can't see them, but that's a camera angle. Not that they're not in it. So again, here looking at the last 550 or so to go. Alabama's put on a good piece here the last 250 or so. So still have Washington State in the lead. Let's give them a 5 or 6 seat margin. Alabama maybe a seat up on Duke, tight there for that 2nd and 3rd spot. Central Florida looks to be in 4th. And then in that 5th, 6th, 7th, Clemson's come back on the field a little bit as well. Clemson, Boston, University, Tennessee. Let's put Tennessee and Clemson that battle for 6th, and Boston University falling back just slightly. So again, the lead, Washington State has maybe a 5-seat margin, 4-seat margin. So like the first 2 races, those top 3 boats in that tight battle for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and hopefully pushing the 3rd place boats in all 3 races to the fastest time possible because that qualifying matters. Alabama continue to move through here. They now may have moved into the lead, so they had that great push to get with Duke the last 250, but kept going here and started to continue to crawl back on Washington State. Good battle for 1st and 2nd with Washington State, Alabama. Also, you've seen Central Florida continue to come back as well. So now you almost have a 4-boat race for the top 2 spots. Central Florida is starting to feed off this here, again, depending on the angle, but Central Florida coming with Alabama, feeding off them on the near side. So right now, give Alabama a slight lead here. A couple seats up. Central Florida has snuck all the way back from 4th to, let's put them to 3rd here. Washington State staying in that second position, and then Duke and Central Florida. Let's put Central Florida third, Duke fourth. But again, looks to be Alabama, your leader here, with about 250 to go. Alabama the leader, Washington State in second, but a tight battle there. All four of those boats. Duke maybe just slightly back in fourth, but the three boats with Alabama, Central Florida, and Washington State certainly in the battle for first, second, third. Central Florida continue to push in here. We should get a finish line camera just to get a fair shot, but looks like Central Florida will sneak into that lead. Really not quite a photo finish, but looks like Alabama first, Central Florida first, Washington State second, Alabama third. So all three of those really bouncing around between them. So let's go back to the times to see what it is. But it looks like Central Florida, Washington State with the automatic qualifiers, and then time back for Alabama in that heat versus Minnesota and Minnesota and UCLA from the first two heats. So you go back for times, but it looks like Central Florida came all the way back from fourth to win that. So look forward to seeing the times as we compare. We're going to bounce back to the second varsity eights because the flights are so close to each other. We're getting the same teams are going to race here for the first for the heats. So the same teams we saw in the varsity 8 will match up with the teams for the second varsity 8 and the 4. So we should move back here again, be the same lineups as we had earlier on the second varsity as the first. So lane 1 will be Cornell, lane 2 Penn, lane 3 UCLA, lane 4 Wisconsin, lane 5 Syracuse, lane 6 Navy, lane 7 Tulsa. Again, hopefully the times and heats we'll have for the lane assignments for later today will be later this morning. We're still waiting for the time for the finals. But just today is in some ways about who can handle the conditions and a little bit of the craziness of the weather to try to get your best shot for your team to qualify through. So again, we should have the second varsity 8 coming up next. And we'll try to get some, see if we can find any times here from the earlier heats as well. So we should get a shot here in a second for the second varsity 8, the first heat of that, to give us the best sense of where we are for this one. So just some times unofficially. Looks like the varsity 8. It looks like the first heat with Wisconsin was the fastest one. Wisconsin 6:48, Syracuse in 6:49, UCLA 6:53. In the second heat, Oregon State 6:49, Virginia 6:50, Minnesota 6:51. And the third heat, Central Florida 6:57, just a couple tenths ahead of Washington State, a couple tenths ahead of Alabama. So it looks like unofficially Minnesota will be the third, will be the qualifier by time. So the second heat was the fastest third place, but the first heat was the fastest first place. Again, those are all unofficial. 6:48 for varsity 8 gives you a sense of the conditions and the current. It's normally 20-25 seconds faster. So so that gives you a sense of the kind of conditions out here today. But so the second varsity 8 should be here any second, getting a shot for this. So again, the qualifiers through in the varsity 8: Wisconsin, Syracuse, Oregon State, Virginia, Minnesota, Central Florida, Washington State, all unofficial. That last race with those four boats all really close, Central Florida came back from fourth early on and able to pull that out. So again, the early leaders aren't always the ones who finish, but we should see second varsity 8's coming around here any second. So just a delay to get the camera in place here with the short time gaps between races. So we should see this any moment. Again, Cornell lane 1, Penn lane 2, UCLA lane 3, Wisconsin lane 4, Syracuse lane 5, Navy lane 6, and Tulsa in lane 7. So as you look up or down the river, but up towards the start line with the drone. So it looks like we have just a little bit of delay for this race here. So as soon as we get started, we'll get the camera here and show it to everyone. But a bit of a delay as they try to line up for the second event of the day. So it just sounds like they're getting into alignment in the second varsity 8. So a bit of a delay between the two events, but we should have a start here momentarily. As you look up the course, a little bit tough to see because of the winds, but you can tell some chop going on in the middle there. That marina on the right is about 750 into the course or so. Uh, so the great thing now is we have these drone shots where we get a sense of the expanse of the course, and we can get it from up top and see what's going on. So we're waiting for the camera at the start line to give us a sense of where we are here. But again, the second varsity 8 these will go off quickly again, just like the varsity 8s, all 3 heats. Okay, so it looks like we'll have just a couple minutes still delay before the start of the second varsity 8, the first heat. We'll try to get you updated times and schedules as soon as we have something there. So scheduled for. So he's still trying to determine the varsity 8 finals when those will be. Tentatively scheduled for 9:40 for the varsity 8A final. Again, that's subject to change based on conditions. So looks like again delaying for. As here you get a shot of the Clemson boathouse and where the boats launch, and where they dock. And again, you can see the current just pushing up against the dock with the wind. What the rowers are facing here to try to get in safely. So again, we'll hold off for a moment here and then get back as we start for the first tee of the second varsity. You can see boats coming to backing into the stake boats, which will take a couple minutes. So for those new to rowing, as the boats line up and back into the stake boats there, especially with choppy conditions, the rowers actually literally go in reverse and back into the stake boats. And so coxswains now are trying to get a straight shot on the line. Once all 7 boats are lined, the officials will go right to a start. In fact, they may even be doing a countdown where they just say, count out from 5, and they just go. So the coxswains, you see the blades, they're trying to straighten the boats out. I'm getting prepared here again. The officials will likely go on a very quick start to get this moving, just to keep things going and also get a fair shot for everyone. So you see the rowers sitting up there ready to go. Again, first heat, second varsity 8. The referee will likely start as soon as he or she believes it's fair. So waiting for any moment here, and again, tough to get these conditions with so many boats out here. So again, the middle lane to the highest seeded crews. We saw Wisconsin, Syracuse in the first heat of the varsity 8 qualify through. And from a team standpoint, want to get all 3 of your boats through to the final for later this morning. So still here trying to get everyone aligned at the start. Um, so we're likely to see them take off any second. Again, lane 1 on the far side, Cornell. Lane 2. Okay, so it looks like we're back up here. So this shows you how challenging it is when it takes this long to get started. It's not it's because the conditions are windy. It's hard to get this thing set up for everyone and make it fair. So it looks like we have alignment of everyone. And the officials are certainly more focused on getting a fair start and letting everyone get in their lanes. See if boats are getting close to colliding early on, you have to redo this whole thing. So really try to get this right the first time. And it looks like you're having a wind from the starboard side there. Excuse me, from the port side as you're seeing the starboards. Try to get that around. One of the challenges here is that you have everyone who's been on the water for a while, then having to stop and wait, and so the rowers have to be able to acclimate to that pretty quickly and deal with the conditions and warmed up and cooled off and warmed up again. So coxswains have a challenging job in situations and days like this. At some point, hopefully, the official just says go. But again, trying to find that balance of being fair and getting the race moving. But you can see some of the rowers there just kind of going back and forth up the slide to stay warm as best they can, and not want to get caught off guard by any start at any time, but also so trying to be ready, but also stay warm. So it looks like there's more debris here on the course, so they're letting the boats come off the line again, like we saw before the Varsity 8, letting a couple boats warm up there in their lane as boats will come through. So they're going to clear off. So it looks like we'll have a couple minute delay again as boats come off, clean up the course. So we'll come back to you when we're ready for a start here in the second Varsity 8. So it looks like we have had a start in the second varsity 8. Again, the first heat, and seeing some of the time delays here going on because trying to straighten the course, trying to clean debris. But it looks like off the line there, you see lane 3 UCLA in the lead. We saw it in the first varsity 8 as well. Wisconsin right with him there in lane 4. Again, those leaders from the middle of the course. So again, we saw early on UCLA doing that. You see now on that far side, looks like let's see, Penn right in there as well. Penn, UCLA, Wisconsin. It's like those 4 boats really. Syracuse just off that pace as well. Cornell also in the mix there. Looks like just Navy and Tulsa maybe in 6th, 7th there. So again, from the middle of the course, UCLA, Wisconsin looks to be the early leaders, but Penn was right in there early on from the beginning. So again, the first heat of the second varsity 8. Again, the goal is to just get your all 3 boats into the final. So in conditions like this, in a day like this, but you see lane 3 there, UCLA. Lane 4, Wisconsin, those two battling it out. You saw Wisconsin in the first heat of the varsity 8 come through in the middle of the race, and so I'm interested to see if their TV matches that. Again, looks like Penn over there in lane 1. Excuse me, not Penn. Cornell over there in lane 1. I apologize. Cornell in lane 1. I'm right in that mix as well. I'm probably looking at a 3rd, 4th spot competing there. You see Syracuse starting to come back here as well. So Cornell, Penn, lane 2. Those 2 boats look to be 3rd, 4th. Syracuse right in there, and then again on the near side, Navy, and then Tulsa battling out for 6th, 7th. So 2 leaders early. Wisconsin looks like they've maybe now moved out on UCLA. Again, the battle with those 2 schools. Syracuse, Penn, and Cornell, kind of 3, 4, 5 in some order, some variation of that. For there. So again, the leaders coming out of the middle, UCLA and Wisconsin, and then lanes 1, 2, and 5 for that 3rd, 4th, 5th spot, some order. Navy and Tulsa at 6, 7. So Wisconsin now maybe a seat or 2 up on UCLA. And again, we saw this earlier today where Wisconsin in the body of the race seemed to perform well there. So consistent that with the second 8. So I believe that's 1,000-meter mark here that we're coming through. So again, Wisconsin up on UCLA, and you're seeing over there for that far side looks to be Cornell. Coming through there. Cornell maybe in 3rd up on Penn. Syracuse looks to be in 5th, but really, let's say a length between 3rd and 5th. And then again, looks here in the back, you have, looks like Tulsa just up over Navy for that 6th spot. In the corner, you may have seen a referee kind of waving a flag there, and I think they're trying to keep lanes for boats, but very difficult to do in the situations with the buoys, just with the water so high, buoys all over the place. Coxswain's trying to do the best they can, get a straight course. But Wisconsin continue to power through the middle of this course. Again, maybe that middle 500 really pushing through. Wisconsin now looks to be the clear leader. UCLA clearly in 2nd. Again, Cornell on the top looks to be, all the way to the right, looks to be in 3rd. Penn and Syracuse in that battle for 4th. Again, top 2 automatically go through with the next fastest time. Tulsa on the left side of the screen looks to be in 6th there, with Navy in 7th. But again, as you can see, advantage point a little bit tough to get your arms around maybe if you're not familiar with the sport. But Wisconsin in the middle of the screen, they look to be your leaders by, let's say, 8 seats to a length up on UCLA. Again, the battle for 3rd, 4th, you see on the top there, Cornell, Penn, and Syracuse. Let's give Cornell a couple seats up on Penn and Syracuse at battle for 4th. So again, now you see Wisconsin here in the lead there. And it looks like Tulsa has also moved back into the mix there. So looks like that's Syracuse has also come back through there. So Syracuse, maybe Tulsa there, and UCLA all battling for that 2nd spot. Now again, Wisconsin the clear boat to move on. Looks like UCLA is still in that 2nd spot, but Syracuse narrowing that gap, Tulsa narrowing that gap as well. Cornell and Patton maybe falling back just a little bit for that battle for that 2nd spot. But again, looks like Wisconsin they're clearly ahead. Will move through, and then after that, UCLA looks to be the slight favorite with the last 150 or so to go. And you can see the chop there in the last couple 100 meters what the rowers are dealing with. But again, Wisconsin coming through here as a leader. UCLA looks to be in 2nd, but again, I had a tight battle there with Syracuse and Tulsa, so it should be exciting to see as they come across the line. So just getting to the finish line here, a couple strokes away. As we get through this last dock, you see the finish line just there we go. So Wisconsin through, open water up on the field, and looks like that's going to be Tulsa here in that second spot. So Tulsa came through, Syracuse came through, and then UCLA in fourth. Looks to be fifth, that's lane 2, Penn. Sixth, Cornell, and then looks to be Navy in seventh. So in a time when the camera was down, we saw Tulsa move pretty significantly. They were in fifth or sixth early on, but really powered through there. And it looks like UCLA faded just a bit as Syracuse also came through, but Tulsa getting that second qualifying spot, so a nice push for them. So Wisconsin, I think, the only team of the first heat to get both their boats through, and now we'll look at the second heat of the second varsity 8 to see if Oregon State and Virginia and Minnesota, if they can pull. Oregon State and Virginia can pull through for the second qualifying. So here we go. Second heat, second varsity 8, lane 1, San Diego on the far side, lane 2, Louisville, lane 3, Minnesota, lane 4, Virginia, lane 5, Oregon State, lane 6, Oklahoma, lane 7, Dartmouth. And it looks like, I believe it's Virginia in the lead there in the middle there. Virginia up a couple seats up. Looks like Louisville's in there, Minnesota's in there, Oregon State, Oklahoma, all 4 of those, and it's a really tight battle for second. Let's give a slight edge to Oklahoma for the second spot. Virginia maybe, let's give them 4 seats, 5 seats up on the field. Oklahoma maybe 2 seats up on Oregon State. And Louisville, Minnesota, very tight for that third, fourth, fifth spot. Dartmouth maybe a slight edge over San Diego for that 6th spot. So Virginia maybe, let's say, 5 seats out on Oklahoma. Oklahoma maybe a seat or 2 out on Oregon State. Oregon State a couple seats on Louisville and Minnesota. Let's give Minnesota a slight edge over Louisville. But really from boats, second through fifth, very tight, maybe 3-4 seat spread with those 4 boats. Again, really with San Diego and Dartmouth just slightly behind, but not by much. So again, some of the challenge here with conditions like this is getting the angles and the antennas all lined up with wind churning like this. So not necessarily a perfect day for everyone, but for the broadcast, but we're doing the best we can to get this for you. So Virginia now looks like almost a length up. Interesting to see compared to the varsity. The 2V looks to be ahead of the field by a significant amount here. That second spot looks to be Oregon State. So Oregon State had moved through and won the varsity 8. Looking to get both their boats through. So Virginia now just trying to get open water. Oregon State in second, but not by much. Just really close with Minnesota there. Those 2 battling out for second. Then you've got Louisville looks to be in fourth. And Oklahoma's fallen back just a bit. Oklahoma was right in there for second, but maybe it's just come off the pace in the last 100 meters. Looks like Minnesota may be inching out on Oregon State here. For that second spot. And then back, you saw San Diego there over on lane 1, just ahead of Dartmouth. But again, Virginia now looks to be out on the field. So kind of like Wisconsin in the first heat, looks like they've got the separation so that they can, hopefully for their sake, cruise a bit. But the battle for second, if they can keep that going, maybe push back on Virginia for there. So Oklahoma falling off the pace just a bit. But looks like Minnesota now has maybe 3 or 4 seats into that second position. Minnesota just over Oregon State for second and third, and then a good battle fourth between Oklahoma and Louisville. So Virginia open water up as they cruise ahead of everyone here. But again, that battle looks like Oregon State's staying right in there, and again trying to match their varsity 8 to get through to the final, which really is the key for all the teams here on this cross-regional racing day. So again, Minnesota and Oregon State in a very good battle for second. Oklahoma had fallen off the pace a bit, but starting to come back here. And stay in that mix, trying to get in that grouping for that battle for second, third, fourth, and then Louisville just above them in fifth. So those 4 looking to get the 1 automatic qualifier if Virginia holds. That's Louisville in the picture there, and then Dartmouth in sixth, San Diego 7th. So just like the last heat, the leader up by about a length or so, maybe a little open water there, and looks to be really tight there, Oregon State and Minnesota. Oregon State maybe a little edge to them. Again, Oklahoma maybe creeping back a seat or 2, but Oregon State right now in second, but very tight with Oregon State and Minnesota. Let's give a 3-seat edge, 2-seat edge, 3-seat edge to Oregon State, but very close between those 2. Virginia, let's say a half length of water out on the field, and you see Oklahoma coming back maybe on Minnesota, but maybe not quite on Oregon State, which suggests that Oregon State's got a little more momentum versus Minnesota at this point. Louisville fading just a bit. Louisville in fifth there, and then a bit of distance back to Dartmouth and then San Diego. So Virginia now, let's say a half-length water, and it looks to be Oregon State really ahead of Minnesota and Oklahoma. But Oklahoma's now moved through Minnesota for that third position. Oklahoma's starting to come back. We saw that in the last heat where this near lane, I think it was Tulsa, I believe, was quite competitive and came back to get second there. So Oklahoma continued to come back on Oregon State, moved through Minnesota, and now that battle for a second has continued to heat up between Oklahoma and Oregon State. And Oregon State trying to get both their boats through, send a strong statement to everyone here. Oklahoma trying to deny that and push through. Minnesota's still not out of it. Minnesota's still in that battle for second, third, fourth. Again, slight edge there to Oregon State, but certainly any of those three could still be in the contention. Minnesota may be slightly back on that. Virginia just kind of sat for the last 500 meters or so, had that half-length of water lead. Certainly in lead, certainly control, but whether they're trying to coast or prepare for this afternoon or just everyone else has kind of picked up the second half, but the margin has not changed much from first to second. But the battle for second continues to heat up, and you saw some water splashing around there, tough conditions. And it looks like Oklahoma continue to come back here. Oklahoma now maybe even coming through Oregon State, but a good battle there. Looks like Oregon State catching some water there, but so is Oklahoma. So it's a tough battle with maybe, 250 or so, 350 to go. So it looks like Oklahoma maybe has gone through Oregon State to try to deny Oregon State getting their top two boats through. Virginia again, open water up. Oklahoma on that near side, closest to the camera as we come through here. So Virginia through as the winner of Heat 2. And Oklahoma will come through as the second place. Oregon State third. They will come back to Minnesota in fourth. So Minnesota coming through there as fourth, and then if everything holds, Louisville. Well, it looks like Dartmouth has come through there, so didn't quite get that shot. But Dartmouth through in fifth there. Louisville in sixth, and I believe I'll put San Diego in seventh. So again, looks like Wisconsin and Virginia, the two boats so far, two teams to get both boats through from the varsity and 2V. So we'll set up for the last heat of the second varsity 8. There's San Diego coming through now. So the last heat of the second varsity 8, we'll have Boston University in lane 1, Tennessee in lane 2, Washington State lane 3, Duke in lane 4, Alabama lane 5, Central Florida lane 6, and Clemson lane 7. So already started on this one again, trying to get all these races in as tight centers as they can to try to get everyone a race in with the conditions as they are. So off the line here, it looks like that maybe Duke over there in the blue, just in the lead there. Looks like Alabama next to them, really tight there. Washington State and Tennessee, it looks to be as kind of the four leaders early on. Again, Duke maybe a seat up on Alabama there. And then after that, let's say Duke maybe 2 seats up on Alabama. Alabama a couple seats up on Central Florida and Washington State. And then in Tennessee in 5th. Clemson on the near side, also right in that mix. Clemson in lane 7, maybe 4 or 5 seats behind Central Florida in lane 6. But your early leader there, let's give Duke maybe 2 seats up on Alabama through the first 500-600 meters or so. So again, in the morning, we saw in the varsity 8, Central Florida, Washington State, and Alabama. Central Florida, Washington State went through. Alabama was the third place in that. So again, trying to get all 3 boats through is the key for all the teams here. So here we go through about, let's say, 750. Duke continuing to move out there. Duke out on, let's say, about 5 seats on Alabama and Washington State. Washington State continue to push back here. Again, we saw it this morning a little bit in the varsity. But you're seeing from the top of the screen there, lane 3, you can just see the bow marker there. Also see Central Florida still in the mix. Again, did well in the varsity 8. this morning. But Duke right now, the early leader. Let's give them a 5-6 seat lead now over Alabama. And then Washington State again right there. Clemson right in it there as well on the near side. Looks like that's Tennessee also in that mix there. But really not big separation from let's say second to sixth right now. And Duke a slight edge overall. And also you see on the top there Boston University also in the mix. Didn't quite see them in the screen before because of the angle, but they're right with Clemson there. Certainly close to Central Florida in that race for 5th, 6th, 7th. But also you see Tennessee up there and maybe 4th. Washington State right there and Central Florida. So those three very close for 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Duke now has just about a length on the field with a tight battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Alabama still has that edge for the 2nd place spot here. But again, Duke just about a length of water over Alabama. Alabama a couple seats up on that tight race with Tennessee and Washington State for that 4th spot. So very close there, and then again back to Central Florida in that 5th spot, and a good battle for 5th, 6th, 7th. Sometimes you see a little spread between as we get to the 5th, 6th, 7th spots, but a good battle here between all of them. So again, Duke in the lead here as we come to, I think about 7:50 to go or so. You see just beneath them, Alabama still in that 2nd spot. And you can see how tight it is really for the next 3 or 4 spots there. Boston University maybe a little bit behind there, but pretty close between Central Florida, Clemson, Washington State, Tennessee, all battling out for that, let's say 3rd through 6th. But again, Alabama in that 2nd spot right now. But as we've seen a number of times here, in the last 600-700 meters, the boats come through here in any of these lanes, and any of those boats from, let's say, 2nd to 6th could compete and get that 2nd spot. Duke to be the clear leader right now. So it looks like they are the likely qualifiers. Alabama right now would be the 2nd favorite to do it, but Central Florida right there. Tennessee at the top of the screen. Tennessee is right in that mix as well for that 3rd spot. Washington State looks to be in 4th, 5th spot. Again, Clemson right in there as well. Boston University a little bit back of that group. Maybe they're the only ones just out of that mix for qualifying. But again, Duke just open water up. Alabama looks to be, again, in the lead for 2nd. Let's give them a 6-seat, 5-seat margin or so. We've seen these near lanes do well towards the end of these races here. So, again, Clemson right in there, Central Florida certainly right in there. Looks to be those two with the best shot of pushing Alabama for that 2nd spot. Duke continuing to push. Let's give them a slight bit of open water here with about 400 to go or so. You see Central Florida come back. We saw this in the earlier race here, Central Florida in the Varsity 8. Continue to push there. Alabama still with a couple seat lead. Clemson has continued to push into them. Tennessee and Washington State have fallen back just a little bit. The race just sometimes you see with lanes as boats are close to each other, they kind of feed off each other. And you're seeing Central Florida continue to push in. Central Florida having a good day today. Continue to come back into this field with about, let's say, 250, 300 to go. And Clemson also coming back on it. So great battle here for 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Again, Duke has been out, but you're seeing Central Florida continue to creep back into that lead as well with Duke. Again, Duke likely to hold off for the win, but Central Florida continue to push back. Clemson going with them. Maybe Clemson's gone through Alabama as well. Tight for them. So very tight there for that 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Again, I give the edge Central Florida for 2nd, but Clemson maybe a couple seats up on Alabama there for that 3rd spot. Again, 2 to qualify plus the next fastest time. Central Florida continue to come back on Duke. Again, Duke certainly with, let's say, 200 to go, favorite there, but Central Florida continue to come back as we get to the finish line. So Duke looks like they'll win this. Looks like Central Florida in 2nd. Clemson looks to be in 3rd. Very tight. Clemson, Alabama. Again, the times may matter when you look at the comparison later on. So Duke looks to come through here as a finish. Central Florida looks to be in 2nd. There comes Duke coming through. Duke winning against Central Florida. Nice push here the last couple hundred. 2nd. Clemson will be 3rd. And looks to be Alabama coming through in 4th. And then the battle back to 5th on the top side of the screen between, looks to be that's Washington State in 5th, Tennessee coming through in 6th, and then Boston University will come through in 7th. So again, we've seen Central Florida now twice today come through in kind of second half of the race, get a good push there. So try to get some times unofficially here. Looks like the second heat was the fastest, was 6:58. Again, unofficially, Oklahoma through second. So it looks like the fastest qualifier will be in the second heat, just like it was in this morning. So unofficially, Wisconsin and Tulsa through in the first heat, Virginia, Oklahoma, and Oregon State through in the second heat, and then Duke and Central Florida through in the third heat. So the second heat was fastest both times this morning. So next we'll have the varsity four. We'll look to see if the debris is cleared. They'll probably try to look to do that again, as well as check the lanes before. And you can see whitecaps starting to pick up there in the middle of the course. For those who aren't familiar with the sport of rowing, that just means it gets choppier and choppier. So what it looks like happening is the wind's becoming a tailwind with a head current. That's usually when you get chop like that, is when the two are in contrast to each other. So again, the wind coming down the course with the current coming towards the start line, and that's why you're seeing times in the 7-minute mark is even though the wind's helping, the current's hurting significantly with the rain as heavy as it's been. So we'll come back with an update for the varsity fours for the next heats, trying to get again all NCAA boats through, have them get their races in through the weekend. So we'll give you the next update as soon as we have one. Okay, so currently we're suspended with the debris on the course, so we'll look to give you an update as soon as we have one. But we're going to pull the fours off the course, and then racing suspended, and we will have an update as soon as we get one.